Excuse me. Welcome, welcome. While we wait for everybody else to join, if you could quickly, it doesn't have to be quickly, I guess. If you can share your introduction in the chat.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome. Just putting our introductions in the chat. Good morning and welcome, welcome. We're about to get started. Right now we're just doing some introductions, seeing who's here with us today in the virtual room. Right, we got some near and far. I love it.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, welcome. We're putting introductions into the chat.
Okay, thank you.
And while everybody's putting their introduction to the chat, I also would like to take this time to introduce myself. I think I have probably shared space with a lot of you, but just in case this is our first time together, my name is Janet Vargas, and I'm a trainer and a coach with Illinois Action for Children CS3 team. My team and I provide technical assistance, coaching, and training for early childhood community systems work in the state of Illinois, both at the local and the regional level. And most of the work that we have been doing takes place with early childhood collaborations and collaboration members, but not exclusively. And a little bit about my background. I come to this work with 10 years of community organizing experience. And most of the 10 years I worked at an organization in Illinois where I trained parents in leadership development curriculum. I staffed local branches of parents and as well as statewide parent-led councils and campaigns. And now I'm here doing this kind of merging some of my experience with community systems work. And I am so happy to be here with you all. All right, let's jump in. Let's break the ice. We're going to continue using the chat. And if you could share in the chat, what is the best advice you have received from a peer? It can be personal, it could be professional. And we do want to hear from a couple of people. If you want to unmute and jump in, you can also do that. Starting with the hard questions this morning, huh? All right.
I started.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Letty.
Okay, I started. Good morning, everyone. I think the best advice that I had received from a peer was you got to believe in what you see of people instead of going off of words. Trust that. Look at the actions first. The actions, people actions will prove to you who they are. Whether they listen to the words that they say, their actions prove will prove who they are. And that's what I'm currently learning as of now. Going off of people's actions and not off their words.
That's a gem. Thank you for sharing. Can I ask you another question, Letty? Did it carry a different weight because it was a peer who shared it with you?
No, it didn't carry a weight of or like like a bearing. It carried it was an uplifting weight.
Thank you, Letty. There's some also really good ones in the chat. I invite you to read it. So always remember the mission. And then you got a +1 from someone else. Be prepared on time and listen carefully to others. Do what makes you happy. Self-care. Yes. Put your needs first so that you can help others. Follow your intuition. All the small things can add up to a big achievement, and do what makes you happy. Anyone else want to share the wisdom with every one of us out loud? So good. I can share one. I think, definitely have learned a lot from my peers. The one that's coming to mind right now is listen to, see, I don't even know the words. Listen to understand. So it's basically just listen to understand before you try to be understood. So I'm working on my listening skills.
I have one more that I would like to share.
Yeah.
And this is from an elderly person. She will always say, don't cut the tail off the cow's ass that you're going to need to fan the flies away.
That's a good one. Can you explain a little bit what it means to you?
That means don't try to use people, or don't try to diss people, or don't try to, don't try to get over on people that you're going to need later on down the line. That's why she said, don't cut the tail off the cow's ass that you're going to need to fan the flies away. Because the cows always had shit on their butt, and they used their tail to fan the flies away.
On that note, thank you, Ms. Letty. On that note, somebody's grandmother used to say that. So we're gonna move forward, but we would break the ice with gems of wisdom that we've learned from our peers, since we're gonna be talking a lot about peer-to-peer outreach today. So we jumped right into the training because because folks were still joining, but just to let you know, the training objectives for today are going to be all about the role of the outreach ambassador within early childhood systems, and particularly in collaborations. But if you're not part of a collaboration, there's still plenty of great information, strategies, and tools that you can take away from today. We're also going to be talking about the benefits of this role to everyone involved, what it takes to engage parents in this role, as well as, like I said, share important materials and resources. Here's how we're going to do it. Pretty straightforward. I just want to highlight that we're going to have a 10-minute break at around 11. But if you need to, please do take care of yourself throughout the training. So you don't have to wait for the 10-minute break, but just let you know that it's there. If you're like me, because I'm like, I don't want to miss anything, and I will hold it until the break, but feel free to take care of yourself. All right, let's jump in. We also want to share the resource that we've created that this training and a lot of our parent engagement resources are based on, which is the parent engagement handbook that our team created. It is being dropped into the chat right now. You don't need it today to follow along, but if you'd like to read a little bit more into depth on any of the work that we're going to be talking today, we invite you to take a look at it and use it. And just to let you know, this handbook, it contains our parent engagement framework that our team, the CS3 team, uses for our technical assistance and support. And the framework itself was created based on national research as well as state research with both collaborations and staff and parent leaders who have been doing the work for a while. And so this is how this got put together, and this is what we'll be working off of. We're going to do some quick background and before we can get into the meat of today. When we say parent, we mean any adult that shows up for their child. We're using the Head Start definition. And at times we might use parent and family interchangeably, just to let you know. This is what we mean. Everybody's included. I also want to set the landscape for a training and overall our framework. So it focuses on parent engagement in the community systems and policy sphere, which is this the green area, this green circle. And for the purposes of facilitating, the engagement and what came through our research, we've identified 4 typical parent engagement roles. They're not exhaustive, but it's a good place to start. And then, that today's training is going to focus on outreach ambassador. We also want to leave you quickly with our parent engagement definition. Whenever we're doing parent engagement work, it's helpful to define how you will engage parents of the process, as well as the desired results, the outcome of the parent engagement within, the context of the work, being as intentional and as specific as possible. And so I'll give you a minute to read our definition. Right, you'll have it in your materials. It's also in the handbook if you want to come back to it. All right, what is the parent outreach ambassador role? And I also want to invite folks to jump in the chat or unmute. And if you have any questions, comments, I would love for today to be as participatory as possible, if you're up to it.
Jenny, I'm gonna take it upon myself not to answer this because this is currently my role. So it won't be that fair to us for me to answer this. I'm gonna let someone who's not in their role to answer this to get them to see what's their idea of this question that you asked.
Sounds good. Way to step up, step back, Ms. Letty. Well, I'm gonna just share the role description, and there are gonna be some opportunities for discussion. There's quite a few breakout groups, so everybody will get a chance to speak and be heard, hopefully. But the role description is, when as a cohort, as a group of parents, the collaboration or whatever entity that's engaging parents supports them to plan and carry out this peer-to-peer outreach. And it can include, talking to, it usually includes talking to and listening to other families in the community, and particularly around early childhood education and care programs and resources and supports. The group of parent ambassadors also plan when and where they will reach other parents and families. They can tally the outreach data, so whatever they're hearing, whatever they're collecting, and also help to make sense of the data and contextualize it. And so basically the heart of this role is, when parents are reaching out to their peers in their community to intentionally talk and listen to them about early childhood. Some examples of this can include parent ambassadors going door to door, knocking on every door to see, to find families where they are in the community, as well as attending public events or spaces where families typically congregate. It can be events, the park, grocery stores, wherever families are and can be found. So here's a little bit of that cross-sharing I was talking about. I'm curious, I would love to hear from you about what examples of parents as outreach ambassadors do you know about, or have you possibly even carried out yourself? And it's okay if you haven't, that's what we're here for, so we can learn and maybe do it. But I'm curious if anybody has any experience, or have you heard of somebody doing this? All right, I see. Thank you, Jasmine. You're saying that you're going to start the program soon. That's exciting. I don't want to tag anyone. Ms. Lodi, you said you're a parent ambassador, right? Do you want to share a little bit about what that looks like in your community?
Well, since you asked, but yeah, so I am currently a parent ambassador. That's where my first ambassador job was within the organization that I work with. And what that means is getting information from people in the community based off some information that you already have. And it's just like the people in the community adding on to information that you had already collected. That's also where data comes in. That's also where as we talk about, like the talents that you have collected from talking to people in the community. Also, the data could also be based off of decision making, but then it's also those one-on-one conversations that you have when you go out into the community. So for the person who put in the chat that this would be your start. So just be prepared to have intentional conversations. Be prepared to listen more, ask less questions, but get more answers. Because I feel like the more questions that you ask, the little that you gaining from the people that you trying to get the information from. So always be mindful to have beginning questions and leaving as there so that way you get your answer that you're trying to get. So that's also just something to be mindful. Just keep it out of having those one-on-one conversations. Um, also, also be very aware that sometimes we as people we assume things when, in other words, what I'm saying is that Um, it's a little training that I had did when I was doing my coffee phase. It was called the facts and assumptions. At times we assume things without getting the facts of it. So like you could come and like on the person doing it, you could be like, she not interested or she don't know nothing about it or that person don't want this information when how can you assume that without actually getting the fact? It could be the meanest person in the neighborhood, but it has the most information that you need or the most or you could have the most one-on-one conversations. So, don't be quick to assume things. Um, Other experiences that I have within my ambassador outreach is that be prepared to make relationships. Sometimes you can have that one lasting impression on a person and they can know you forever. They can also be on your web of support. So it's many ways that you can go about with doing this. You just gotta have faith or believe in yourself that you can have these conversations, you can make these connections, and you can have long-lasting relationships with people that's in your community. So for the person who's on her way to become an ambassador, I wish you the best of luck. If there's a way that we could connect after this, I could share you some more pointers. But yeah, that's the life of a of an ambassador. Thank
Thank you,
you,
Ms.
Janice, for
Letty.
giving me that moment. Huh?
Thank you, Ms. Letty, for sharing all of
Thank
your
you.
let's see, there's also something, a message on the chat from Caramillo California nonprofit sharing free resource, parenting norm bumper stickers. Thank you for sharing.
Hello. So my name is LaMonica Campbell Oke, and I work out of, I work for Strong Families YWCA. So I started in the Willowbrook corner back in, I want to say January, we started, and there is an outreach ambassador there, and I met with her, and I was sharing with her my goal for the families and to reach the families. I'll fast forward to upcoming April 6th. She has helped us to have a movie night for our families out there. And she actually went out to that community and reached who I could not reach and found out that the families would like more time with their children and things put on for the families. So we have signed up, we have 30 families coming to movie night. And that's thank you to Toshiba, our outreach ambassador in Willowbrook. So there.
Thanks for sharing, that's awesome. All right, let's go into the, I thank you, LaMonica, for sharing about, like the why, like the purpose. So some of the reasons why collaborations may choose or groups may choose to engage parents in the role of outreach ambassador are to, like you have been saying, reach community members, possibly those that are not connected to the early childhood system. And, this is a great strategy to reach those parents, again, those families who are not connected to the system for program recruitment and registration. And if you are hearing from them about what their needs and preferences are, it's again a great opportunity to be responsive to them and align the work that you do to what they're interested in and what they need. And when we engage parents, everybody wins. So the benefits to the parent ambassadors themselves are to strengthen relationships with their community, because they already might be, strong and present, but there's nothing like walking around and having those one-on-ones to deepen them. They gain knowledge about the current and available early childhood programs and resources. These things change, but if you're the one that's kind of getting the word out about what's there, then you become an expert as well. And you practice as an ambassador, they practice working with each other as a team. They gain skills, knowledge, and build their leadership up. And then, so those are the benefits. Those were the benefits to the ambassadors that are going to be engaging their peers. The families are being engaged by the outreach ambassador. Parents also benefit. They gain knowledge of what's available in their community. And they have their voices heard by the early childhood programs and systems, right? If they're the ones that maybe are not connected, then you get to hear what they need in order to tap into the resources that are there and available for them. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of the actual planning to launch an effort, a parent ambassador effort. If you've been to any of the trainings with me, I'm going to say this over and over. It's for me, I think it's intentionality, right? Form follows function, and be really clear about, okay, we're going to support parents in this pretty big lift, this effort. Why are we doing it? To what end? To what end? What does it look like if we accomplish our goals? And there are a few different things that you can choose as an objectives, which can be, you may want to share important early childhood information, not only what resources are around in their local community, but what is the importance of them? Why, right? Why does it matter to them? There's actually a parent ambassador program in Cicero, and that's something that I learned from them, my peers. They're really intentional about sharing that why, and I think their ambassadors are always like, did you know that your brain your child's brain has, builds all the neurons that it's going to have in their childhood, maybe for life during the first 2 years, right? That big why. It's also a great opportunity to hear from parents what they need. It could be a short conversation, a one-on-one, or even a survey that they fill out. And then in there, some ambassadors will do a referral, right? Just saying like, hey, I'm telling you about the importance of early childhood. However, I don't know all the ins and outs and the application systems, but if you want somebody, if you want to give me your name and contact information, somebody can call you back and make sure that you're placed in a program that meets your needs. And then why parents are out there talking to other families, if there's an event like a movie night, or if there's a collaboration meeting that's coming up, boom, leave a flyer. There we go. You're reaching folks. And some ambassador programs do all of these. Some of them do just some of them. So really it's, what your needs are as a collaboration, as a community, and where you want to put that energy. And so once you figure out why you want to carry out this effort, the next piece is then finding out resources and figuring out, okay, so what do we need to do what we want? And for this, we're going to put you in breakout groups for about 15 minutes or so. And then in your group, if you just start brainstorming, and you could use the Jamboard link that is going to be put into the chat okay, so every breakout group is going to have a Jamboard frame, and then if you can just, here, I'll show you. Take some time to brainstorm, what would you need, or what does a community need to carry out an ambassador program? And now we're not thinking the dollar amount, just very like big picture, right? So my computer is being a little slow. Actually here, you'll get, everybody is working to brainstorm what collaboration X needs to carry out an ambassador program with the following objectives. They want to share important early childhood information. They want to get feedback from parents in a short survey, and they also want to offer referrals. So breakout group 1 has the first frame, and you can navigate to different frames using these little arrows up here. And breakout 2 is in the second frame. So just what does Collaboration X need? Like, for example, they'll probably need stipends, right, to compensate parents. Generally, what else would you need? And we're gonna, there's nothing, no right or wrong, just kind of getting our head into it and brainstorming what might Collaboration X need to do this. Any questions? And then we'll come back to just, if you finish and you want to kind of take a look at other people's frames, and if anything stands out to you about the conversation, or if anything surprises you, we're going to have a short check-in after the breakout group to share that. So everybody good?
So we just click on this link here.
Yep, click on the link, it'll take you, and then you could put your ideas by clicking on the fourth logo coming down, the sticky note. Just type an example.
Hold on. Wait a minute. So you said click on the fourth logo.
This one here, and then you could type, and then it'll leave the little post-it note up here in the upper left-hand corner. You could just move it around.
Okay, because you know, me and these jam boys ain't the best friends, but I'm gonna try it.
You will
Okay.
also have a whole team that y'all can be your web of support, and y'all can help each other out.
Yeah. But
All
I'll put
right,
myself
what's that?
today.
All right, so we're gonna open up the breakout groups again. Very generally, what does Collaboration X need to, what resources, what things do they need to carry out an outreach ambassador program? All right, you can open up the breakout groups. So check it out on the shared screen. And while you're looking at other groups as the answers or thinking about your discussion, if there's anything that surprised you, or you're like, oh, wow, I hadn't even thought about that, or anything like an aha moment or a highlight that you want to share with the group once everybody's here, you just unmute and jump in. Is everybody back? Yes. Or if you have any questions about other people's posts, now's the time. I have a question for the signed contract. Is it a signed contract for the parent ambassadors?
Yes. So when we were, like I said, I'm very new. So we're creating all of our documents that we need. And like the contract just kind of lists like expectations that we expect of the PAs, but also what they like can expect from us offering support, just so it's all outlined in there. And they agree to you know, like attend events and meet so many hours like per month, according to like how the stipend is paid out and all that.
Thanks.
We will
yeah.
have one of those as well.
Yeah, we have one because they have like their own set of soft deliverables. So
That is great. Yeah, I think when I've done it, we have had it, and I didn't even have it in the training. So there you go. You know, the more you know. Thank you all. Anything else that like you have questions about, or an aha moment, a surprise?
Yeah, Jenny, I have a question.
Mhm.
Well, this is for the other groups. Did any other groups put on their jam board that you got to be a trusting relationship with your ambassadors? Because why I say this for, because in order for all this to work, you got to build a relationship within your ambassadors for them to trust you to carry out this work that you set for them to do.
It's a great point. Can I ask you a follow-up question? What are things that we can do to build that trust?
Is that the question you asking me or you asking everyone?
Anybody who wants to jump in?
Well, first thing that you got to do in order to build that trust is to be transforming. Don't leave nothing behind. Don't give one set of rules to one person and another set of rules to another person. You got to be clear. You got to be fair on everything. Even if somebody might tell you that it's not fair and put you in a situation or predict me that you being unfair, this is how you got to set out the rules. And then you can't be demanding. You can't expect people to do as you want them to do, but you're not bringing that same effort to your people.
Snaps. Thanks. Anybody else want to share? Or something that stood out to you? Can I ask about like on this frame for breakout group number 4, accountability? Can you elaborate on that?
We were discussing that. Accountability, I was sharing with the group that our outreach ambassador, she holds our feet to the fire. In our last meeting, she asked the question, hey, so why can't, I'll just use this Collab Z, but Collab X can, where I have your list of deliverables, where's the money? If you have room to do 7, you've only done 5 by my count, tell me where the money is. And so accountability, that's what we meant by that. She holds us accountable.
I
And you
love
need
it.
someone who's not afraid. They're not afraid to speak because who they are, they're the voice of that community.
Yes. And I've seen it time and time again. You know, I think I've seen you know, like the Iris, a few folks talked about having a system like referral system such as Iris. I've seen communities get really excited about finding families, but there's no plan for how we're going to follow up with them. And parents are like, hey, you know, like parent ambassadors will come in and say like, I'm seeing people that I got a referral for at the bus stop, at the grocery store, and they want to know like why, you know, why nobody's called them back. And they're gonna, you know, that's my relationship on the line. So yes, I think it's urgent, and definitely like a follow-up plan is very important. These are great though. There's a lot of really great things. Thanks for sharing. If you didn't get a chance to look at all of them, I think these are great. And also, I mean, to extent that you all can connect with each other and share, you know, I think it'd be helpful, right? Like a few of you shared like your contracts. I think that might even be helpful, kind of sharing what a contract looks like, if you're able to. Just, you know, encouraging collaboration.
I did have one question. The one right here that says have a script for parent ambassadors to go off of. Can someone briefly just tell me what that looks like or what it's used for?
Group number 1.
I think Letty shared that, but just kind of giving them an idea of how you would approach like a parent to ask them about the survey. So yeah, just having almost like a little elevator speech or something like that for them to go off of. So some people, they don't need that, but some people it really just helps them to have a starting point, I think.
All right. I realized I froze and I had to come back in and out, so I have to rename myself. All right. Thank you all for that. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Do you see my screen? Okay, because sometimes I think I'm sharing and I'm not. There's a lot happening. Yeah, so I think definitely, you know, like the needs will come up and it may look different for communities, but some things are helpful across the board. And so, you know, considering resources, some of the things that you might want to take into consideration is somebody at what we call a parent engagement lead, right? Like who's going to support the parent? Who's going to do all the administrative supports, copies, the papers, the meetings, and whatever parents need. We need, you know, you're going to need some staff or a dedicated volunteer. Translation and interpretation of if you're recruiting ambassadors and outreaching to families that may, you know, speak another language, this is going to be important. Parent stipends and compensation. This is hard work and it deserves to be compensated. And key materials, which we're going to have an activity to review some of those key materials that we created templates for. And printing costs. I mean, some folks are using tablets now, but I mean, back in the day, things are definitely paper and pen with me, and it's like accessible. And you'll go through so much paper, training, coaching, guidance, and you know, overall, there's a lot that goes into it. In the handbook, you'll see in the appendix, there are a list of important resources just for parent engagement in general. And it's something that we invite you to take a look at. And it also goes a little bit into how to format those, the process to pay stipends as well. So. Another thing to consider as you're planning your outreach, outreach and ambassador program is for choosing your timeline. Illinois is freezing, it's freezing still. And so things to consider, you know, your timeline associated with your objective. Like if you're trying to do a big push for, you know, your preschool application, you know, take into consideration common sense, weather, school and program calendars. You know, I think that the rub with some ambassador work sometimes is the time that ambassadors can go out might not be the best time where families are found. So kind of figuring that out. I loved actually one of the Jamboards I love, that there was an idea of helping parents kind of do a childcare collective or like a co-op, right? If you're paying, usually when I've done these programs, because you pay stipends for parents and you don't want to, they're going to be out and about and can be a liability. They, you know, probably shouldn't bring their children. And it's kind of like a job. So a lot of folks don't offer childcare, but you know, if you want to, and if you can, why not? But we have kind of worked with parents so that they can fix their schedule and kind of do like a childcare co-op with each other, right? Like half of the ambassadors take care of the kids one day and then they'd switch and things like that. School program calendars and, you know, again, the availability of the ambassadors and the families you're targeting. When you're recruiting both ambassadors and when you're targeting ambassadors for recruitment, and then you're also targeting specific family groups for outreach, again, pretty common sense, but it must be said, take into consideration that the groups that you're working with are reflective of your community's cultural and linguistic diversity. This might be a little challenging too, in that then the trainings might be bilingual, multicultural. There might, you know, you might have parents who aren't used to working with each other, and you might need to maybe, you know, be intentional about that, like team building and a lot of translation, a lot of interpretation, but it's worth it. And again, targeting those groups that are underserved and under-resourced. If we want them to reach their peers, then engaging folks that are representative of the groups that you want to reach. And that also includes groups that are isolated and that you usually don't hear from. So we're gonna have a group discussion. Again, I feel like I do this in a lot of my trainings, but it's so important to even brainstorm, right? In your community, what is an underserved group that you would want to target for both recruitment as ambassadors and also like to hear from? So what is a group that you would want to engage? And then how have you or how could you reach that group? So for example, if, you know, in your community, you know that there is, you know, a group of Congolese like immigrants who speak French, and you know that they're not going to any of the programs. And so they might be your targeted both for like engaging as an ambassador, but also to engage those families. How, you know, if you want to share like what you did. So what are the groups that you'd like to reach in your community? I see in the chat undocumented folks. Thanks, Lorena. Are there, and then for undocumented folks, are they all like one nationality, ethnicity, or are there multiple?
So I would say multiple. I know like for King County, there's a large Spanish speaking population, and a lot of Spanish speaking population here is undocumented, but there are a lot of new folks coming into the community. Not so much, not too many, but there are some coming from different areas. And so I would like to engage, you know, not just one nationality, and engage other folks that don't just speak Spanish as well.
Have you tried anything to connect with these groups, or do you have any ideas?
I haven't tried yet. Well, Spanish speaking undocumented, yes. And some of the things that I've done was just, I guess, go to the events where they're at. And so like there's like some parent groups that sometimes meet, and I've attended some of their events there and connected with some parents. And so I think just doing more of that to reach those populations.
Thanks, Lorena. And I see also La Monica put in the chat, reaching special needs families, and they're partnering with Easter Seals for an event at the school. That's great. You all know, I feel like you all are doing this already, but if there's any strategies, you know, that you might want to share, things that have worked with you all, you can put in the chat, and then we continue learning from each other. I know like welcoming centers, ESL classes, community colleges, there's so many different opportunities for partnership. All right, and so our recruitment recommendations include, so we have one of the other roles that we've outlined and we've had a training for, so we call like a collaboration parent leader, where like a collaboration has a parent team that is connected, and that's what we call the collaboration parent team. I mean, that's like that's your A team. That's where you go. Like that should, if you have a team, that's probably where you want to go first, to say like, hey, this is an opportunity. Not everybody might join, but that's a good place to start. Like you said, utilize like cross-system, cross-program, invitations and kind of like that encouragement, asking, different programs if they have any leaders that they've identified that would be a good fit, and then having them encourage them to join or to apply. Finding parents where they are, like Lorena suggested, and La Monica. I see some chat.
I just also want to, excuse me, because I'm coming off camera here and there. Wi-Fi around me is really messed up. But I think when we say finding families where they at, I think actually, not so much as finding, but like talking to families, engaging in families, that's how you find them. Not just by saying, oh, this area is a big population of families or Spanish speaking families. Actually having those conversations is where the findings is at.
That is very true, Ms. Letty. And we, suggest too, like as you're going around to different places where parents are, kind of sharing this opportunity, kind of having a running list of folks that might be interested. And, this is time consuming, but again, so very worth it. But having a one-on-one with everybody that has said that they are interested in it's great. You start building those relationships, answer any questions, and that is a great opportunity too. And peer-to-peer recruitment model, right? If you have somebody that has done it or is really excited, like, hey, can you spread the word? And I mean, we talked about it with the contracts, but also when you're recruiting, making sure you're very specifically outlining expectations, supports, and compensation. All right, thank you for everybody else who's putting their thoughts and ideas for recruitment in the chat. All right, we are at break time, so we'll give you 10 minutes.
Yeah.
My favorite part. All right, see you all at 10:15. No, 11:15, sorry.
Okay.
We're gonna get started. And everybody can just jump in when they come back. Here we have it. Okay. All right. Now, the idea of training came up a lot, and just wondering what ideas you might have about topics for trainings for the parent ambassadors. Do you have any ideas for topics for trainings for the parent ambassadors you would like to share? All right, how about I share my list, and if we're missing anything, you should let us know. Leadership, okay. Lorena, can you share a little bit about or elaborate on that, on the leadership topic?
Yeah, well, it just came to mind. There's a training that's happening in my community, in my county, by an organization called Kofi, and they're training parents, and it's a little bit of a leadership training and community organizing as well. And so I think that would be like a great opportunity for parents, and also just because we want to empower our parents to be able to go out there and talk to other parents, and also be present in, like, for example, our AOK meetings, and be able to speak up and feel like empowered, to do that. And so I think that has to do with leadership.
Thank you. And I see some active listening and violence prevention. Can you elaborate on the violence prevention piece, Ariel?
I guess that would be more like, because you know that parent ambassadors are going to be going out into the community and I mean, we would at least want them to like be able to go to events in the community and be able to do stuff like where we are. So they might see people who may be experiencing abuse, different kinds of violence. And if we see that, I mean, we're mandated reporters, we need to know this stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it can be important to know what violence can look like, even if it's not super apparent, and it's something that's really important to know about. Yes, and Michelle mentioned ACEs training. That is kind of
Yes,
also where I was going.
I had also put in the chat that the topics what the trainers would cover is that knowing, like telling the ambassadors like what this training consists of, how many hours is this training, and often at times some trainers are paid trainings and some trainers are not paid trainings. So just the logistic information about the training itself is also informative. And then also, letting the investors know that this training is consists of investor hours.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ms. Letty. Yeah, when I've done this training, it's usually consists of their work they get paid for. It's gonna help them do the work, but yeah, I'm being really clear about it. Yeah, and thanks for sharing all of that, and the ACEs training too. It's like adverse childhood experiences or like childhood trauma. Yeah, anything I would say, like anything, you definitely want the basics, right? Thinking of like, well, what do parents need to be able to fulfill what we're asking them to do, but then also what else might be helpful, and hearing from parents too about like what their interests and needs are. Here's a list of some of the topics that we've covered or might be helpful. And some of these are co-creation, right? It's not necessarily coming in with a list of like, this is how you stay safe, but just saying like, okay, how do we make sure that we stay safe in the field? What do we do? Do we have a plan? And kind of coming up with something together. And I would say also like not sugarcoating of like, don't worry, you're gonna be safe. Nothing bad is ever gonna happen, right? But saying like, we know that bad things happen, because our communities, well, because it can't control things, and there's violence or under-resourced, things like that. We're not going to say that it's never going to happen, but let's have a plan if it does happen. We're not, so things like that. And Ariel, I think, yes, all of these, I love all these topics. I do want to thank you for talking to about like that mandated reporter. We just did a training for community where we had, that conversation of like, what is the expectation of parent ambassadors? Like what, and then what is that plan, right? Like, and it's tough. It's a tough conversation because, and I think that it's a conversation internally that you all as an organization probably should have, but also, yes, if they're triggered, but if they see somebody, that is in crisis or needs immediate assistance, like what to do, but also how to not burden the parents with, having to be that like crisis support at that time, how to refer them for needs, and then also like not putting them in a place where they're kind of like telling on their neighbors based on like a 2-minute conversation that you may or may not know everything about. So it's complicated. And we're gonna have a bit of a discussion at the end on some of the issues that kind of we're still working with. So maybe this is one of the topics that we can address, right? Like mandated reporter, what is within the responsibility of the parent ambassador and what isn't, because it's complicated. Let's see. Now we're gonna put you all into breakout groups again, because as part of the trainings, we also have some template of materials that might be helpful. And, the training also should include parent ambassadors kind of reviewing the materials and practicing how to use them. And so we're going to put you in breakout groups, 4 breakout groups, and each breakout group is going to have a different document and or material to review. So group 1 is going to be taking a look at the ambassador tally sheet. Group 2 is going to be taking a look at the family survey, a survey that you can do, that ambassadors can do at the door or when they're interacting with their families. Group 3 is going to be looking at the conversation guide that was brought up earlier. We have an example of one. And then group 4 is going to be looking at what we call a program list, so a little handout, and you'll see what it is. And so you all as a group, if you can take a look at your materials, your document, and look at and be ready to present on like, what is it? What is it? What might you use it for? And then if you have any feedback on how it can be improved. We're going to give you, and it says 15 minutes, but I think 15 minutes is a lot, what we got from the last breakout group. So we're gonna give you 12 minutes to, as a group, review your document and then be ready to present on what is it, how to use it, and any feedback for improvement, how you might tailor it to fit your community. These documents are in the handout. They're all, if you just kind of keep scrolling, you'll see them. And Armand just put the handout again in the chat. And we also just put the different questions that you'll be presenting on. Any questions before we put you back in your breakout groups? Cool. All right, we'll see you in a little bit. Oof. Oh my goodness. My computer keeps freezing. All right, is everybody back? Armand? Maybe. All right, let's see. I'm bringing up the handouts so that we can see them. Am I still sharing? Okay. All right, so group number 1, you ready to present to us? What was your document, your tool? What's it used for? Like the different components, and then any feedback for how you would change or tailor it.
So for group 1, our document was obviously the tally sheet, and I think the components can kind of speak for themselves. Obviously, it's a table set up specifically for like street outreach and canvassing and that kind of a things. Obviously, there's an address, what type of interaction there was with the individual, whether or not you were just able to knock on the door.
Adam, you froze. Something's in the air today. Internet is not working.
we were thinking is that this could be used. I see that my internet connection is unstable.
You
But-
froze for a second, but
apologies.
keep going. We hear you now.
And so we had mentioned that we could use this for, what somebody mentioned that we could use it for food pantries, and then the types of events that we also talked about, because, you know, event is really general. So we talked about types of events that we could do this at and use this sheet at, where, you know, library events like story times and that kind of thing, as well as just like school district nights, like family kindergarten readiness nights and resource fairs, and you know, it ranges for a lot. And then with that being said, other things that we mentioned that we would potentially even change would be, you know, maybe keeping the address or maybe changing it depending on the location, or specifying the location. So like if you're at a food pantry, either specifying that in the notes or including the location address of the food pantry in the address portion. And then maybe including more in an interaction other than just knocked on the door, talked to, or left materials, because of the fact that, you know, events is also very broad. You know, what else could we do to include how we do outreach for that? And then somebody also mentioned how we could maybe do like a scale of which individual needs the referral the most or something like that, or which person feels like they need the referral or shows most of an interest. That way, you know, when we look back at it, we know who to contact first and that kind of a thing. So we're not just, you know, contacting people who didn't really have an interest, but we're kind of just putting their information down to be polite, or, you know, other instances that may happen. So that kind of a thing. That's what essentially we talked about with the tally sheet.
Thank you, group one. Yes, and this is the template. So obviously, like if you recreate it, may give more space to put information, but working well we got here. All right, so group two.
Okay, group two, we looked at the early childhood family survey. We found that the different components of the survey, it kind of breaks it up into household information, income, there's questions about, you know, relationship, what kind of services they get, little bit of a social history. We noticed that it was kind of wordy, very word heavy. So we would like to make it more, maybe make the wording more friendly, maybe ask more open-ended questions. And then that way we would kind of be able to change the wording, kind of tweak it to accommodate our own communities. And then we could even use it at community events to get an idea of who all attends these events, and kind of what they're looking for. And yeah, just some of the wording is a little bit confusing. Like question number 2, like the way they break up the ages is a little bit unclear. So we would want to maybe change that. So yeah, a lot of changing the wording.
Sounds good. Thank you, group two. Yes. You know, again, this is the starting point, and just changing it to fit, you know, like what your needs are and what you want to find out. Thank you. Let's see. All right. It is kind of long. I'm not gonna lie. All right, group 3. You have.
Didn't assign anybody. Oh, Maya, did you want to?
I can talk. I kind of wrote down stuff as we were talking. So with the outreach conversation guide, we talked about that. That's what it is. It is a guide. So, you know, you don't have to follow this exactly like a script. That might seem a little, you know, impersonal and not super reachable. So we would use it as a guide, and, you know, feel free to personalize it, make it your own. Someone mentioned that we could role play with it with other people to kind of figure out exactly how we want to approach it and go about it. So that would be a good exercise with it. We want to make sure that it'd be available in different languages. So if we have a, a large Spanish speaking community, we would have that available for them as well. And I think it talked about making sure we have the outreach materials on there. So we would want to make sure that the ambassador was prepared with those materials to hand out and give to people they talk to. Maybe even have like a business card or a resource guide to give, something like tangible to leave them with. Because I know, obviously when you talk to people, it can be kind of overwhelming with information you give them to kind of have something they can refer back to. And then as far as the introduction up here, where it says briefly explain who you are and why you are there, we'd kind of want to add to that what an ambassador really means, because I think that could be confusing to someone too if they've never heard that term or they don't really know what an ambassador does. So kind of just like a short little elevator speech. And then just understanding their needs and meeting them where they are. So just making this outreach material really accessible and approachable when we're talking to people, so they're able to understand it.
Thank you, group 3. Yes, and again, invite you to kind of take it as a starting point and change whatever you need to make it work for your community. It's always good to kind of have like a starting point and be like, thanks. And then last but not least, group number 4.
So we talked a little bit about adding and changing some things on this program list. So some things that we talked about adding were maybe information about like when or where can families get developmental screenings, and if they even are offered. We also talked about having a name on there, like a direct point of contact. If families are making phone calls, it's good to have one person to reach. I feel like it's easier. Other add-ons that we might want to look at are maybe email, eligibility, maybe a website, or even the cost. And then how would we be able to use this list? We could give this out as a resource at community events, or even we could use it for ourselves as a resource guide.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, and also in the past I've seen different ambassador programs put like even a little map of like in your community and like highlight all the different, so sky's the limit. All right, thank you all. So these are just a few documents that might be helpful both for, for the ambassador and in the training. And if you have any other things that you usually use or that you might think you can use, you can also put it in the chat. And we didn't talk about clipboards, but they're like the bread and butter of outreach if you're doing paper. So something to think about. So, we talked a little bit about developing outreach safety guidelines. A question that I have used before, is just as a discussion that generates the safety guidelines together with the ambassadors is, how do we take care of ourselves and each other during outreach? And that can include some of the ideas that we put out there, but parents will tell you real quick right away how they want to stay safe. But these are kind of what I borrowed from other parent ambassadors that they, have brought together. So, using the buddy system, making sure everybody has everybody's contact information, keeping each other out of in sight, having a bathroom plan. There's this ambassador who was like in her 70s, and she's like, I don't want to drink water because I don't want to go to the bathroom. I was like, you need to drink water. I do not want you to dehydrate. Having a plan for when people invite you in their homes, because they will. And I've had also parents who are like, I didn't want to be rude, so I went in. We're like, no. So even just like, a one line, what to say when people invite you, so that you don't panic and go into their house. an emergency plan, extreme weather plan, different ways to identify themselves, and we're just gonna, you know, coming up with these things together, and then making sure that they practice that we keep them in mind so that they're practiced. A few other tips before we go into a breakout group to talk about what we still, you know, our takeaways and questions that we still have. But a few other things to practice, or to, you know, that are good practice, are to meet regularly with parent ambassadors. Let's see, depending on how much outreach folks are doing, you know, maybe even every 2 weeks, every week, depending, you know, on the pace and how much outreach folks are doing. And in these meetings, you know, what they can do is, you know, tally and submit their outreach documentation. They can plan their next outreach. Maps are great for this too. They troubleshoot issues, right? Some reflective listening, right? Like, what's working? What do you need? Because things come up. And it's always a great idea to just celebrate progress, share stories, you know, either from their end, that they're kind of saying like, this is what we did in the outreach since the last time we met, but also you as the group that is leading the ambassador work, just kind of letting them know, right? Like, number of referrals up to date, number of children placed, kind of like letting them know the impact of the work that they've been doing. When setting outreach efforts, good rule of thumb is 2 to 4 hours. I think, but you know, parents know what they're able to do. Any less than 2, it's like, why did I leave my house? And more than 4 might be too much. But again, folks can set their own hours. Managing expectations. When people are door knocking, out of every 10 doors that you knock, you'll maybe find 2 people at home, and out of those 2 people, they probably won't have little ones. So it can get very demoralizing, but knowing that like this is the expectation, right? And how to kind of balance that is maybe do half of the time of the outreach, you can plan for an event and then do door knocking around. But like just doing like 4 or 6 hours of door knocking can be very demoralizing. And also just putting things into perspective, right? Like, we're looking for folks wherever they're at. So this is kind of part and parcel for the work. And yes, you all said earlier when we talked about like, what does it take to do this? Incentives are great, toys, books for the families that you talk to. And it's always good to have something to bring folks to talk to you at events. So now we're gonna go into a breakout group and see about like 7 minutes. It's not that, but thinking about sharing what questions, concerns, thoughts, or feelings do you still have about outreach ambassadors, and then we'll come back and see if anybody wants to share some of the things that come up. Questions? And Kristen, could people use the calendar invite to kind of share stuff with each other? Or
yeah, that has everyone that registered. Also in the follow-up email, I'll make sure to include everyone's email, that way folks can connect.
If you don't want to be receiving or sharing emails, please let us know. I know we receive a lot. So we have unfortunately we have a couple of minutes left, but just wondering any things that you're still like wondering about, want to learn more about in terms of the outreach ambassadors?
One thing I brought up, and I kind of missed the beginning part of the presentation, so I wasn't sure if we had talked about like, where to outreach for parent ambassadors, and I did have a couple of ideas that I shared with my group. but I think that that would be like an important topic. And I can share some of those ideas, like for example, shelters, any events like birthing classes. I guess this is for like AOK. I'm just thinking of AOK, but like the YWCA or YMCA, those organizations that already have some parents there would be some good locations of where to find parents, or I guess connecting with like any parent groups that are happening in your area already. And one of my parents actually connected me with a parent that they do a lot of work with, and so that's how I was able to get a second parent ambassador as well. So just those connections, and I think we talked a little bit about that already.
Thanks for sharing that, Lorena. And you can also, if you don't want to unmute and jump in, you can put it in the chat. And Deb, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to share anything?
No, but I was just sharing that the idea of finding enough parent ambassadors to cover all your target areas can be really difficult. And we found in our collaborations that having a small amount of financial incentive to have parent liaisons was really helpful, because it's hard, but we would like to have ambassadors and liaisons. And it's just the idea of trying to figure out how to find them and how to keep them as a big enough size of them to do all the work that you would like to do, basically. Was something we just were sharing ideas around where people found them, whether it be through WIC was a big idea, or the YMCA, or shelters, or ESL classes. And then, as Lorena said, once you find one, a lot of times if there's a group of parents, you can maybe talk about friends doing it together, but the thing is you have to cover all your geography, you know what I mean? And they're spread out in different areas, the way we're looking at the county. So we're just acknowledging that can be a challenge to fill the spots.
Yeah, so recruit. Thank you. Mm-hmm. We are at time, but I'll stay on if you all want to, use the space to kind of continue connecting to each other. Don't want to keep you longer than you want. I'm going to ask you for a big favor, and if you could please fill out the evaluation. We'd appreciate it. Give us some feedback for how we can continue improving our trainings. But other than that, I'll see you around if y'all want to use the space to connect.